Good evening. Today is June 10th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Board of Trustees of the town of Buena Vista, Colorado. We are starting early this evening with a work session, which will include information from the town clerk as well as the town administrator. So I think we're going to start with the clerk.
Okay, do we want to give Andrew a minute or do we jump?
Sure. Yeah, we got a little ahead of ourselves.
He is here.
You want me to share what he had together?
I think everybody has it on their packet. They have it downloaded to their laptop and things. Yeah, good. So, yeah, it's been 9 months since we met and reviewed what the town clerk and the deputy town clerk does and things. So we won't go into as much detail this time. So, but before we jump into the minutes that was addressed in your packet, I just want to go over that currently the town has 419 business licenses, liquor licenses. We have 39 active liquor licenses here in Buena Vista. Special event liquor permits so far this year, we've issued 22. And short-term rental license, we're at 246. So that's just kind of an overview of one of the things that Ed and I do since we do the permits and the licensing here in town, as well as maintaining the website, board packets, board minutes and things. But our focus tonight, we wanted to kind of just talk about the minutes. It's been a while and we've had board changes, town administrator changes, deputy town clerk changes, that we want to make sure that we're all on target as far as making sure that the board of trustees minutes are what you guys really have in mind and things. Or if you are happy with them, do you want to see some changes with them? Anything that, you know, you would like to see done different. And like it said in the packet, the purpose of the meeting minutes is to create a clear and accurate record of the action taken by the body, not to capture every detail and discussion and deliberation. As you all know, you guys are faced with some really heavy decisions. And there's quite a bit of conversation back and forth as well as, different input. And to capture that word for word would be impossible. And just, how there's 7 people on the board, there's Ed and I, there's Brian, and, we all sit here in the same room the next day, or even 3 days later, how you interpret those comments, if you're doing the minutes, or if you're Cindy thinking back about the wonderful time that she had the second Tuesday of the month and stuff, that interpretation can be different than what Devin does. So we always want to make sure that the minutes are accurate to what was going on. And that's why, the question is, how much conversation do we include in the minutes? So, and as it says here, minutes should focus on what is done, not as what is said. And this approach ensures that the record reflects the decision made and the actions taken while maintaining efficiency, clarity, and legal integrity. And as always, we go seek guidance from Jeff and Catherine, since if there was an incident that involved the minutes, we would definitely want to loop them in since they would be our legal representation. And we included Catherine's comments in that memo. So, and the different types of minutes that municipalities, boards, were action minutes, and that includes the action taken by the board with minimal comments included in there. Summary minutes are more what we're doing currently now. We summarize what was said, a summary of the business topic and things, and Ed and I do our best to capture what you guys comment and say and get the high points. Or a lot of times, as you guys have seen, we say the board of trustees had very lengthy discussion because there's no way you can capture all of that and things. And but yet we do want people to know, yes, you guys discussed it. It wasn't a slam dunk decision that was made and things. So there again, we want to have that conversation. Is that what we still want to do and things? Or maybe go a little lighter on the summary and, have more of a blend of summary and actions. But there's detailed minutes, and then there's this transcript verbatim type of minutes, which, we have never done before and which we really want to shy away with. And Brian, I have put on my little bullet points. He's our subject matter expert. He's our sweetie when it comes to minutes and things, because he has had years of experience reviewing minutes, not only as our town administrator, because, when when Ed and I do the minutes, they go to Brian for a review before you guys even get them. But as a town administrator for Buena Vista and for Poncha Springs, he has had the joy and the pain of going through years and years of minutes to research the decisions that boards have made. So he can be our guy who tells us, the good, the bad, and the ugly of researching minutes.
You want me to go?
I want you to go.
Yeah, I've definitely had this discussion with boards in the past. I think it's worthwhile to get a good feel of what you guys are looking for in the way of minutes. These discussions typically are spurred from, there's a discussion when you're talking summaries. There might be an individual that's not happy that their comment didn't get in, or why did you include that comment and not this comment? So it gets into this realm of you being subjective on which ones to pull in. Even the kind of brief summary that they put in here kind of provides that you're supposed to capture the essence. And when you've got contradicting views, even on the board, that how are you supposed to capture that? And so what she's referencing is like, how do I use it? I probably look back at minutes more than most. And I have leaned on minutes and gone back. And I would say, over a 5 to 10 year period, I'm looking at minutes, I'm looking at what discussion was had, reviewing the summary, the context, getting that kind of feel for it. If you were to go with action minutes, the idea that the other component of it, I can also look at packets that are kept in retention, or digital recordings associated with it. So it provides that opportunity to get the same information in a different way. With minutes that I've looked back 20, 30 years, when I'm getting so far back, I do have more of a tendency. I'm just looking for the motion. I'm looking for the agreements that were signed, the action, and not really, the comments that were made don't hold a lot of weight 20, 30 years after the fact. And so the conversation says, do we, what if the digital recordings get lost somehow and we're not able to access them? The chances of that happening over a 5 to 10 year period, probably slim to none. And the further you get away from that meeting, the less important the actual discussion is. And so that's what she's referencing. And like I said, I've at least been in it for, a decade, and I've looked back 50 to 60 years before. They're fun and they're handwritten.
Yeah.
So that's just my kind of anecdotal story associated with it.
So as we outlined in the packet, we put the strengths and the weaknesses, both summary minutes and action minutes. And I think one of the things, the strengths of the summary minutes, if we're ever called upon to defend the board, we do have the summary minutes to demonstrate that we've exercised our due diligence in taking minutes, although that can also hurt us. So it's just a kind of a fine line. And we also want to always be sure, even with action minutes or summary minutes, that we want to record any direction made by the board. So if you direct Brian or, any of the town staff specific directions, we definitely, no matter what type of minutes, we want to make sure that that is captured, just for a good follow through and reminder for all of us that this is a topic. So that one of the things that definitely falls on to Ed and I, that we capture those directions. The weaknesses of summary minutes is the inefficiency. Summary minutes typically require significant time to prepare. And it's not only Ed and I who have witnessed this, and I'm sure Brian has too, and you talk to any municipal clerk or city clerk, they will tell you on average, for every hour we're sitting here in the board meeting, it takes about 5 hours to make that hour into minutes, just so that it sounds right, flows right, grammar's right, and that we captured the same thing. So if we have a 4 hour meeting, it's usually 20 hours to do the minutes. And that's on top of the time that it takes Brian to review the minutes, any edits, and the time that you guys spend reading the minutes. So it does take some time, but yeah, we want to make sure that, you know, we're thorough in doing our job, because what we do does matter, you know, today as well as next year, 10 years from now. And like Brian said, you know, he's come to me after he's reviewed minutes from 1956 and said, oh, where's this document? So, yeah, so it's just a fun thing.
I have a question on Catherine's notes where it says that the minutes don't have to be written. Like, what else would they be?
They're the recordings.
Just the recordings, those can
We
be.
have municipalities that just do the recordings.
Okay.
We're also seeing several municipalities that are using artificial intelligence to use their minutes, and it is very, very short. They just say, you know, they're called to order, who's there, the motions that were made, the vote, and then they adjourn. And then they rely upon their audio. There's also several municipalities that don't even post their minutes on their website. Whereas no matter what type of minutes that we will continue to do going forward, they'll always be posted on our website. We have the audio available on the website. And then people can always reach out to the town clerk to get a copy. One of the things we talked about in our memo at the very end, the considerations, you know, they're on YouTube. The audio recording is available. Timestamps. We had mentioned how we can timestamp where in the meeting the topic was discussed about electric preferred or the liquor license. So in the minutes, you would see a timestamp and then the subject, and that's in our one example. And Ed and I talked, and Brian, that this is going to be our practice going forward. No matter how we're doing the minutes, we will be timestamping the topic. That way, it's easier for you to go back, get a new, you know, town clerk, new town staff, new board member. It's going to be easier for them to research if they want to see what happens. You know, marijuana licensing, even when we had that come up in 2020, we did go back and research the minutes from previous meetings when it had been presented to the board before. So having that time step would be very efficient. So we'll start utilizing that no matter what. The other thing is, some of you have seen on our agendas, we're now start putting the page number where in the packet they are. And I had put that in the last email. I don't know how many of you know that we have always bookmarked our PDFs and stuff. So I thought, I wonder how many people, you know, may or may not have known that. So I shared that with all of you as well as our department heads and things, because we want to make your lives easier. Because, you know, at the last meeting, we sent out a 560-page packet for y'all to review. I hope you appreciated the one that you got Thursday.
Yeah,
Very
That
much.
doesn't happen very often.
very nice.
Sure, or Thursday or both. Well, I always appreciate bookmarks for sure, because I feel like I'm hopping around
Yeah,
time to time.
that's it. So, but. And Brian, do you have any other things to contribute on discussion on minutes?
Well, just one thing, I'm still pretty green and getting my bearings. This is the first time I've ever taken minutes on a professional level. But it did strike me when we met for a clerk's luncheon last month. Paul and I went to Salida and met up with clerks from the area. And it struck me how literally, I think all of them in the room who did speak on the subject mentioned that they took action minutes. And as we listed out in the memo here, you know, that includes Salida, Leadville, the county, and so forth. So that gave me a perspective on what's important, what's needed, what's critical, and obviously we don't want to miss detail, but it's being done pretty broadly.
Mhm.
Brian, you're kind of saying that when you go back super far, you're really only looking for the motions.
That's right. Yeah, because in my opinion, I mean, I know some discussions, there'll be, you know, opinions thrown out there, but at the end of the day, what really matters is the motion and any documents that were approved associated with it. So even if, you know, say it was an applicant with the land use code offers up this, unless it was memorialized in some type of, whether it's final plat, that PIA, within a resolution or ordinance, those are the documents that actually hold the weight. It doesn't actually, you can't really go back and lean on a statement like that. Which kind of reiterates why it's so important to really pay attention to some of those documents. And then, same thing with a board member, because if a board member offers a statement within the meeting, it doesn't necessarily represent a statement by the body as a whole. And so when I'm looking back, yeah, that motion and that ordinance or whatever document was approved are the ones that hold weight. So, yeah, that's the thing. We've had these type of discussions, with past boards and stuff like that. It really is, what is it that you guys are looking for? What would you like to see? And why, kind of opens up the floor to you guys to say, what is the preference moving forward?
Are you saving all the audio somewhere but not the video?
Both. We have both audio and video archived.
From going back how far?
Why don't you go in and look real quick? I've been here 8 years in September, so I know we've had 8 years.
Yeah.
Let me go under audio.
Because that one kind of-
Before Zoom, it was just the stagnant camera in the back.
Yeah, but we were still recording it and things, and it was just, like you said, that stagnant camera and things, but we always had the audio.
Thinking.
Brian and I talked briefly about the fact that, over time, the technology is going to change. And will we still be able to access these recordings that we're making today? For how many years from now can we count on being able to read those? Because if you recall, we've had 5 1/4 inch discs, we've had 3 1/2 inch discs, we've had, just a whole variety of different means of recording things.
Yeah.
I still have a tape deck at home.
Yep.
I lean more towards the action style of minutes. And Brian, I've been in your shoes before from staff point of view, where I have to go back and listen to my board meeting, and really need to get the essence of the discussion, and the minutes, regardless of how they were written, were never complete enough. So straight to the recording is where I'd have to go if I need to go beyond the decision.
I agree with that. I think especially if we're doing both, I don't need written versions of audio and video, essentially.
One thing I do want to share, because in your sample in your packet, we had the action minutes as far as public comment. It was really very brief what the public comment was. And when Brian and I had met, we thought, okay, it needs to be more. So our public comment will still always mirror like what we're doing now, as far as giving the name, the address, and a little more detail as far as what they talked about. There's going to be some times where it may be, could be really brief, but we want to make sure that we're truly capturing what we're getting in public comment.
I do have a question about that. This is an aside. Why do we ask people for their address?
I was curious about the same thing.
I think relic, but I think, I don't know the exact history of it. I think sometimes having an idea, is this guy coming from Denver, Kansas, or is he a constituent?
Yeah.
Right.
I totally feel comfortable asking, are you a constituent and full-time resident of the city, or where are you from?
Place of residence.
Yes,
Where
place of residence. But I don't actually love
asking for addresses, only because I feel like it's a safety thing. I don't know. And because I think it discourages renters or
people without full-time homes from, I don't know.
Yeah.
If we don't have to, I actually would prefer if we maybe consider changing that to just where is your place of residence?
It's a point of discussion that we even touched on.
I agree, because it's when they give their address, is that where you're staying for the summer? Or is that where you are registered? And I would like to know where they're registered. Are they registered in Chaffey County as a resident?
Because I know people who have owned businesses have given the business address.
Yeah.
And then some people will say, I live on McDonald Avenue, and don't give the.
And we don't know what town it is, yeah.
What if they're a felon and they aren't registered?
I mean, not registered to
tell
vote,
us.
but their residency. Where is their residence?
Where's your primary residence?
Where is your primary? In what town is your primary residence, right? Like getting an idea
I
of
like that
are
better than
they
the actual.
here.
Doesn't that give,
Right.
that helps us put in context who we're hearing from. If this, someone says, I'm from Chicago and I think you need to adopt this geothermal plant,
Right.
you know, like,
Thanks for sharing.
you know, but if someone says, I live on Baylor and I've lived here for 25 years and I am sick and tired of traffic stopping up in front of my house, that has a heck of a lot more weight based on where the primary residence is, in my opinion.
Yeah, agree. I just don't feel like I need to know their full mailing address.
I feel like when you ask their address, the person's more likely to give their address. If you just ask where they're from, people could say they live in BV, but be in the county.
And that's where you would ask for like, is your legal residence within BV, within Cherokee County, or?
You could say I'm a full-time resident of the town of Buena.
Where's your primary residence? State where your primary residence is.
Yeah.
And if you're a resident of BV proper.
One of the things when we have them sign up, and you guys, I think probably only Libby and maybe Devin have seen the sign up sheet, and Maggie.
I saw it last week.
I saw it last week, I heard it from you, thank you very much. You know, we have them give their name, address, and what their topic is. So 90% of the time, it does have their address on the public comment sign up sheet. But you guys don't know that when they're standing up here.
And when they sign petitions, like we'll see in the packet tonight, you know, you have to give an address. So maybe that's the thing. You're still signing with an address, but then you state your primary residence and whether you're.
You could have a checkbox that would be, are you a resident of?
Primary
the town?
residence, primary. Is your primary residence in Buena Vista, in Cherokee County? Other? Yeah, it's definitely, I've been curious about the same thing. Looking at the minutes, I don't know a ton of people that read them, but I have at least one friend that reads every single packet that you put out, Paula. He says you're doing a great job. I fully agree. And it just makes me wonder if there are other people out there. Home addresses are easy to find if you're looking, but it just makes it easier to find in certain cases. So I agree. I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you. But on the topic of how the minutes come out, I do like the action item with that extra little bit of summary. Like the audio timestamps are tremendously helpful. And then keeping that expanded for public comment, and if there's a really in-depth, 45-minute conversation, that it was at length and maybe one sentence as kind of the overall vibe, maybe. Even if needed, kind of only when needed. I don't know. What do you think?
The shorter version would be a lot easier on the town employees, where they could be working on other things. If we wanted to research something, we could watch the video, and with the timestamp, that makes it pretty easy, pretty convenient. I'm not opposed to the shorter version by any means. And even in the longer version one, we don't include everything anyway, because there's no way you could possibly include everything. So if you're wanting detail, you're going to go to the video anyway. That's all.
I like the action items. Now I'm wondering what about the public hearings?
Those are going to be more lengthy. We're going to have to include, the public comment that was given. And also, on public hearings, like tonight with our liquor license, I'll speak, and then Sarah Hernandez will speak, and then, we'll have questions back and forth. So the public hearings, not only for liquor license, but for Marika's public hearings, they are going to be longer. And, a lot of it is, they're still going to be lengthy and things, because if you look at the page count numbers between the two samples, there's not a big difference of, how many pages they're going to be and things. And part of that is, like I talked to Ed, we want to include everything in the consent agenda. And, we went back and looked at other municipalities' minutes and things, and the way we're capturing and the motions and the votes are so much clearer than so many other municipalities. Not to slam anybody, but we want to keep that format, especially if we're going to go downsize to action minutes, that it's easy to see where is that motion is up. And it's always going to be a work in progress. it's gonna be something, that we have to tweak along the way.
Andrew.
I have maybe a little different take on it, but I want to first say I'm totally sympathetic to y'all's position. As a consulting engineer, our professional liability insurance company drilled into us, document. And so when I did construction management meetings with clients, like those minutes are what you live and die by a year down the road when the contractor comes back and says the town did this or whatever. So I've been in your shoes, and my rule of thumb was basically 3-to-1. It took me 3 hours for every hour in a meeting. It was 3 hours, and I went back the next day and I played it on 1.5 speed. Like my rule was I get back in the office the next day. I don't do anything until I get those bleepy minutes done.
Mhm.
And so I've been in your position, and I am totally sympathetic to that, to the time burden it is on you. And I want to say y'all have done an excellent job. Permanence of video records, like Libby said, I think that's questionable. I mean, software updates, file corruption. I work for the state of Colorado now, and I can't tell you how many times we just need that one particular file and it's either missing or corrupt. It's just merciful. And we can't let the enemy be the perfect of the good, and so you're never going to capture everything whatsoever. But I think in my personal opinion, I think number one, it's an issue of transparency. I know when I've gone to look at some of the county meeting records, especially about some contentious subjects, and you pull up that minute and it says so-and-so spoke, so-and-so spoke, so-and-so spoke when we voted. Like, there's a cynicism in me that says, well, that's not freaking transparent. You're just doing the bare minimum. And I think we have an epidemic in our culture today of just lack of trust in government and government transparency. So I think what we're doing here, what we have been doing, we set the bar a little higher than minimum. And I think we do a good job with, in my opinion, our minutes are very transparent. They capture the flow, and some of the sentiment of the meeting. Our meeting minutes have been useful to me because I've gone back and a couple of those comments trigger a memory like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember Maggie said that, or whatever. So they're useful to trigger memory when you go back. And I think it sets a standard. Like our standard is a little bit higher. It's a burden on you guys to keep doing what you're doing or trim it a little bit. But I think just going straight to what the county does with just so-and-so spoke, so-and-so spoke, so-and-so spoke, somebody voted. We're just breeding cynicism with the public, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things, Ed and I talked about this afternoon and stuff. The reality of it is, and like I told him, we may not change anything and you guys may want to have more. We totally respect that because the minutes are a part of our job, part of our responsibility, and that is something.
I'm in no way advocating for more. Yeah. Sympathetic if you're to your position. I'm just relaying my impression of a lot of these other municipalities you look at.
Oh,
it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it fosters cynicism on the part of the public, I think.
Yeah, I agree totally with you and things. And that's one of the things that when you're doing the minutes, like you said, you've done the minutes, it's very easy to get really deep down in the detail. It's like, okay, I need to back out a little bit.
You can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I'm just going to do my best to capture the sentiment without putting my finger on the scales one way or the other and just move on. It'll never be perfect.
Because the reality of it is we're the historians for the town at this point in time and things that, it's an interesting dance.
But
if anything, we just want to make sure that what we're doing now, even if we don't make any changes, this is what you guys want.
It's super appreciated and I recognize the amount of time.
Yeah, it's just.
And if you look at like page 21 of the packet, you get to the Shining Mountains Montessori School childcare discussion. There's a lot of useful information in there as to, how big it's going to be and the sliding scale tuition.
And I had one more point. Sorry. The other cynicism about government is do as I say, not as I do. The minutes we get from our boards, when we read them, like in the consent agenda, some of that stuff in there, there's a flavor for me to understand what's going on. If our boards adopted the same standard that we set with just action items, those minutes would be pretty useless to us because a lot of times those meetings aren't recorded, so when all of a sudden now we're doing one bare minimum standard, but we're relying on our boards, the advisory boards, to do a different standard. And so there's a bit of a do as I say, not as I do. You guys keep them coming. Give us the good details, but we're not going to include that type of level of detail in ours. So
Yeah, I had that exact same concern that it would trickle down to the other boards and all of a sudden it would be you know, a few lines for some of
Yeah,
these.
meeting called in order, here's who in attendance, meeting adjourned.
And we had that discussion at the department head meeting too, that this really couldn't go for all boards.
No, and I don't disagree with you. I mean, I definitely don't think you can have the advisory boards adopt a similar position. There's two ways of going about it. I mean, our packets are readily available, our, recordings are readily available, videos readily available. But yeah, part of including advisory board minutes into your packets, you have a grasp of what's going on over there. We have dabbled with AI to see if there's a potential there, at least on the advisory board, because right now you're asking a volunteer to do the same level, right? At least, Ed and Paul are getting paid to do the 3 hours of work. On some of these advisory boards, you have a volunteer and it's pulling that board member out of the discussion, right? And so dabble is not there yet, but I mean, I think it's something to continue to keep an eye on. But yeah, I would agree, it would have to be different than whatever is decided here.
Do we want to take a straw poll on, are you looking for like a recommendation?
A little bit of a direction, yeah, I mean, nice to see. Just business as usual or tearing down there?
My opinion would be keep doing what you're doing, look for ways to economize, and thank you.
You're welcome.
But others, the consensus may be otherwise.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Andrew, now that you gave some examples, because I've definitely gone back into minutes and it has jogged my memory about things, which is very helpful.
Yeah, and especially when we had someone come a couple of us for public comment, and then I went to the minutes, I shouldn't say this, but I Googled that guy's name and saw where he'd spoke at previous meetings and thought, that gives me some background. He says this type of thing before.
If anybody thinks it's not helpful, I think it's a question of whether it's worth 20 hours every 2 weeks for the staff to do it.
I have a question for you. Kind of doing a comparison between the two, looking at, for example, the public hearing for La Serena's liquor license. Between the two, there seems to be a lot of extra, we'll call it process work in the current format. They've applied, they've gotten their paperwork, everything is good. Versus the action seems like it's much more straightforward, because that was a really straightforward process. And so I wonder if there's a way where you could cut out some of the extra from what we're currently doing. So it's a hybrid of action and summary, where it's action when it's really straightforward, it looks more like the action minutes. But when it's the action plus, action plus. And then when there is that discussion, it looks more like the summary minutes. And hopefully that would achieve the goal of reducing some of your time spent working without reducing the intention or transparency of our meetings. I don't know if it would achieve those goals, but I'd be curious to see. And I'm just using a very small portion.
Yeah, so what you're saying, some topics would be amenable to that, where some topics would benefit from some more color, if you will.
Right.
But just use your discretion. Time's valuable.
Your time is valuable. And that's kind of where I'm thinking is I see the point of having that expanded conversation included, but where it's not needed, cut out all the extra and just go straight to that action minute summary of your action. Here it is, very easy.
If you put the timestamps in there, you've got one paragraph, but the timestamp is showing 20 minutes. Like, there's no way you're capturing it all. You're not even an attempt. You're just trying to get a little bit of flavor and in here to help jog people's memory and kind of give a little bit of a color of how the discussion went.
Okay.
That's.
A lot of it's already in the packet, too, like on the liquor hearings. That's already been disclosed to us.
So the takeaway I am getting is action plus, I'm kind of going with we are, but we want to change still as far as public comment. Do we want to ask town of residency instead of the specific address? So that would be like when Libby says, state your name and the town where you reside.
In your primary residence, and if they say Buena Vista, then you could always clarify, say, are you in town or out of town? And that would be up for the mayor to ask for that clarification if it was.
And then we can also change it on the sign-up sheet to where we can wordsmith that to be, Town of Buena Vista,
Well, the sign up sheet's not public,
right?
I think is the big difference here. So when they ask, they're like wanting to get context of where that person's from. The sign up sheet, like you said, the only people that had seen it were a handful of the trustees, nobody, well, I guess when they're signing up, but it's at least not integrated into the minutes.
Right.
And the audio recording. I think creating that separation out.
What
I
if,
think the form needs to change. What I'm hearing.
And I guess if the sign-in sheet stays the same and the mayor goes down and calls and it says, okay, this is, County Road 371 or whatever, like that's not in town and someone just says Buena Vista.
so what if we do the hybrid of that one and on the sign up, we leave it as is? It's a little bit more on the back end, but then as Mayor Fay calls them up, Paula, who is a resident of Buena Vista, because you'll have the address there and they could check off. So it would change the sign a little bit, right? Like address. And is it Buena Vista, Chaffey County or other? And then you could say this is so-and-so who is a resident of Buena Vista or a resident of the county.
So I should be able to tell.
And then that way it's in public record without that person having to state anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just, and the person who speaks who is a resident by default carries more weight with us because that's that's our boss.
Those are our bosses, yeah.
Everyone else is just an interested party and thanks for coming.
Absolutely. I don't know. I think it's something to play around with.
I think it's fine to do addresses. I think that's part of your civic engagement.
Yeah, I know too many people that have been in dangerous situations.
Yeah.
So it keeps them quiet because they don't want their name out there with their home address attached.
If they don't have to, they can always ask if they don't want to share.
I just think that puts the burden on the wrong person.
Right, I would have to agree. Like, I think it's important for us to know their residency, but I don't think it's important for them to have to publicly state their home address.
Yeah, I think when we say Joan bias to the stand or whatever, we say, please state your name and your address for the record. We can just say, please state your name and if you are a resident of Buena Vista full time for the record.
So you're asking this a yes or no question.
Yeah.
But I want to know if they flew in from Chicago to talk to me about geothermal.
Right, so they would say no.
So they would say they're not.
Yeah, but that doesn't, but that no, then they could just live on County Road 371 a foot outside of town and they're not a BB resident. They carry a lot more weight than the guy that came from Chicago. I still would like to know where your primary residence is. That gives us context for your comment.
Sure, yeah, you could ask that too. What city is your primary residence in?
Yes.
That's fine with me.
Politics all the time.
Yeah. All right, Brian.
That's all right.
Thank you all, thank you.
Like civic engagement involves transparency on.
I just put bullet points together. I think part of these, with the department heads was to give them full discretion of how and what they wanted to talk about. With the idea that there's some departments that get more face time with you guys than others. Obviously those with kind of, public hearings, stuff like that have the interaction with you, whereas other departments might not necessarily have a reason to come in front of you that often. So I just put a bullet point list. I think some departments took it as an opportunity to, go over projects, to go over high level, to have a conversation with you. Others did a, 80 slide PowerPoint, and others did introduction of policies and stuff like that. So, when I came on, we had half the department heads at a meeting once a month. And I started timing it, and that section was taking an hour to an hour and a half every single meeting. So we were getting out until 10:30, 11:30 every night. And so this is the second round we did it. And really, I think at this point, we'll give it a little bit, we'll have a break before we get into budget, and probably will be more of an annual process. And first question, you guys, is you like this structure?
Of the work session?
Yeah, the designated department head work sessions at least once a year. Good. Get a bunch of head nods. I do think the first round last year provided, the platform was the first time that each department had seen it as they have their own designated 30 minutes. And so they did higher level. This is who we are. This is what we do. This second round, we got a little bit more into the weeds and said, what do you want to talk about? And I think last year we had a number of work sessions come out as kind of action items from the round of work sessions. This time, I think we actually have more business item related outcomes out of the work sessions. Financial policies, we're talking general fund reserves, the updating the finance policy, investment policy, that kind of stuff. Those will be introduced to you guys on July 8th. Airport rules and regs, we had a much bigger, robust meeting associated with that. They'll come in front of you at the end of this month. Rec projects, that opportunity to really dive in. They got a lot of projects. Billy Cordova Memorial Park, I know it's one that's been talked about. It's a big project. It is on the home stretch. One, I would say, the ADA accessibility components to it are huge. First one in the county like that. And two, experimenting with turf a little bit, grass, water conservative grass that doesn't take near as much watering. That has been successful so far. It rooted in the first week. When you first put actual sod down, you want to water it excessively. 4 times a day was 12,000 gallons for the week. And so when that gets whittled down, that's actually pretty good amount of water for the space we're getting in the way of water conservation.
That green paint looks very durable.
I know, right? But no, I was concerned it's actually soft. I mean, I don't know how many really pay attention to grass. Some's kind of pokey and sticky. And when you have an active turf like that where kids are playing, you don't want, just all fescue that when you mow, it's just a bunch of sticks. It's pretty soft. You pet it, which I did.
Part of your official job title.
Yep. And then parking, planning dove into parking. We, extremely quick on an action item out of that. The following meeting, they'll continue to have discussions as far as what that looks like. Sean dove into his staff report, which he's got a lot going on. He's got a number of sub departments, if you will. The water treatment plant project, huge project. I mean, huge project. I mean, we're kind of once, twice in a lifetime type projects. It's basically done or close to done. And so once that substantial completion is done, schedule a time for you guys to come out and actually look at it. No water advisory board is going to go out and look at it. Fire, I put that on there because, where Kira went with water pressure and the flow test for the fire suppression system at Buena, which is right down here. South Main does have really good water pressure, and it did pass, and it opens this Thursday or Friday. Police definitely budget considerations, and we're getting to that point. We need to be starting to think about budget and what that looks like moving forward. 10 minutes, some direction there. Mine at the end, as far as potentially getting into some court services documentation, and we'll kind of provide you a platform there. Looking at schedule, as I said, we've got a bit of a reprieve from work sessions for the immediate future. Unless you guys want to throw something on there. Looking at that. If not, we don't, it's June, July, take summer, enjoy it. We've had some heavy packets. Trained you up, we're 112 pages. Nice and short.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's appreciated.
Next packet will be long because it's the airport rules and regs, which have been out there for a long time. But, it'll fill in as we go. I will call out August 12th. The BB school district had some conversations and considerations of timing associated with that. It just kind of naturally evolved, which was nice that I didn't just kind of, spur it on their administrator. And basically there's some small cleanup work we want to do on the SRO program as far as the agreement, just small little amendments. That kind of said, well, that would be a good platform to start off a work session. And so I've met with Lisa. We've confirmed a date. They'll come to us on August 12th or come to our regular standing meeting date on August 12th. But we are I have the facility of the county public safety facility reserved. And so we'll meet on neutral grounds. Number of just discussions at that meeting. That'll be good and get you guys all in one room. So that'll be August 12th. Comp plan, of course, is tentatively, full steam ahead to end of July adoption. There's a few other things that are kind of waiting to see how that shakes out. Recent meetings, Joel and I drove down to St. Charles Mesa. And just, it was good, man. It took the shroud down of like just mystery of who is St. Charles Mesa. I mean, the St. Charles Mesa, if you're aware, is they're intertwined with the town of BV in the way of the Cottonwood irrigating ditch. And it's really 2 paragraphs within a 1989 case, which kind of calls out who gets first dibs on certain water. And so if you look in the Water Resource Master Plan, the drought year condition actually shows that we lose access to 0.88 in drought year conditions because of a stipulation in the 89 agreement. And so over the years, our legal has tried to reach out to them and no avail, and just, who is this? What are they? And so Joel and I just drove down to Pueblo, and are they an HOA? Are they a municipality? They're basically a water provider. It's basically our water department and Dave, utility building clerk in the office and administrator. Like, these guys are just a water department. And so it was a little blue building on a water treatment plant, and they've got a huge service area. They go from here's Pueblo in the southeast corner over to the next municipality. It's almost a rural water provider. But they get most of their water from a ditch that runs 180 CFS. Like, that's bigger than Common Creek. And so our ditches are 3, 5. There's a big one, the Murray down south, 12. And we're talking. So we show up and say, we want to talk about 0.88 right here. And so instrumental, very promising, and just really took the mystery away from it. And their response was, where there's a will, there's a way. And I will say they are definitely more on the water distribution. We talk pipe sizes, we talk well versus surface, we talk meters, we talk buried depth. And then as soon as we kind of said, this is how we're intertwined, they're like, oh, I guess that'll give us an excuse to call our water attorney. I haven't talked to him in years. And so promising in that aspect.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is the water commissioner shepherding that water all the way down to them? How do they even realize?
They come up twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And that was the other thing. Hey, let me get your number. If we see your head gates clogged up, we can clear it out for you or let you know, or, let's work together here. So yeah, and they're familiar with our water commissioners around here. This is just an aug station for them. So take it, measure it, throw it right back. Must not clog up very often, but, yeah, so it was an instrumental meeting. The other one, CDOT TPR, not so instrumental. And that kind of gets in, some of these overlap a little bit. I will say the budget outlook, CDOT TPR, core services all get in the same realm. And that is, we're seeing money be tighter at the federal level, which in turn is tighter at the state level. And at the local level, we're not seeing huge increases in sales tax. And so money and the increases that we're seeing and the accessibility to grants and stuff like that going forward is not going to be what it was. And I would say CDOT TPR, one agenda item there highlighted that, and that is their MMOF fund, which is multimodal opportunity funds, $100 million program across the state. And so as the state legislation needed to find money to balance the budget, that program got slashed, and it didn't get just slashed for this year and going forward. It actually saw the state claw backwards into 2023-2024 fiscal year. And so that concept where as a region, we're okay because we didn't get around to actually approving recent grant funds as a TPR region. There's other TPR regions that are in the red, meaning they will have to go back to recipients of grants and say, you no longer get that. And so that is where the state's at right now. That program is what we applied for the Transportation Master Plan. There is still money in our pot in the TPR region, but it was 1.2 million, and now it's down to 650, 700. So our chances, available funds got slashed 50%, and we don't find out until August at this point. So that kind of goes along the lines of kind of budget outlook. And really, I think once we get there, I mean, we'll see what the summer holds, but it is going to be trade-offs in contemplating where are our priorities and what are we trying to do. And so historically, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've had the opportunity to say, well, we'll just get a grant for that. We'll just get a grant for that. Which is okay. You know, I don't mean to be pessimistic. I mean, every challenge is an opportunity, and it kind of tightens our belt and makes us focus on what are our core services. And so the question out of that is, you've seen the core services document, good considering adoption if I brought it forward at an upcoming meeting. See one head nod. Seen a smile.
Brian, I think I went with Brian to that TPR meeting and heard some of that discussion, and I think my takeaway of it was it wasn't all as bad as it sounds, because when the state has allocated money in past years and it's not spent on what it was supposed to be spent for, you know, $1 million 4 years ago would get you a heck of a lot more than it'll get you 4 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking at, hey, these are funds that were previously allocated in previous years that have not been spent yet. So therefore, we need them back. So it's a little bit of a bait and switch and take back. But to me, the takeaway from that, the pressure is, hey, when we have funds allocated, get busy using them. You know, don't just park them, because if you're going to try to put, you know, 1,000 linear feet of sidewalk in and you don't get around to it for 5 years, you know, the $1 million you got is not going to get you the same amount of sidewalk. So I think there's a mixed bag to that message. And I think one positive aspect of that is like, hey, if we allocate money, it's better to buy guardrail today than buy guardrail 10 years from now.
Yep. Be proactive. They're going to definitely, I would think, shovel-ready projects are going to get a higher score on that kind of stuff. That was optimistic, pessimistic, optimistic, environmental consultant. The HUD dollars associated with the childcare, finally kind of breaking that loose, breaking that off center. It was kind of touch and go, and tread very lightly, especially with federal government, where they're at. Really where the hangup was, is it was a year when we applied to when we got funds. And this is the 1.2 million that can be used for Carbon Street. Within that year, that project was put into full motion. Development agreement was provided. The deposit was put into the factory. The units were made. The other grant had to be spent by basically when we found out the other one was. So everything was in motion. And so by the time you get to environmental, and there's big buildings in the way, they weren't, state historical. And some of that was like, well, the environmental should have been done before you built. So we've been painting the picture of how it happened and how we got here. And we did get a comment from HUD that said, she doesn't work here anymore. We're stretched thin. We don't know when we'll get back to you. And it was like, all right, here we go. A week later, they say, here's a long, elaborate determination. Keep going. And so with that broken off center, I feel cautiously optimistic about it. Now with that, we're doing an environmental assessment that needs a phase 1, which has been done. It only has a shelf life of 180 days, so now we got to get that updated. But we're headed in the right direction.
Is the funding available?
Cautiously optimistic, yes. It's still not a send this year request for reimbursement, but better than it felt, even last month.
So a positive maybe.
Yes, positive. Beyond that, I mean, Steel Drive, still moving on that. We've got the process now down with the PUC and the railroad. The railroad does require an agreement. I do want to have a conversation with you guys about what that agreement looks like. That'll probably be next meeting. And what that, next steps look like. So, yeah, with that, 6:54, I mean, that was the majority of it.
The question.
Yep.
The meeting with the BVSD,
Yes.
is that with the school board, with the admin, or with both?
Board to board.
Love it.
And admins. So I think we got 4 agenda items and it'll be almost similar to what we do here. SRO program, law enforcement's involved, have Dean kind of be the presenter on that. Lisa Yates, their superintendent, present a couple, and then I will present, water usage. Yes.
Did you say water usage?
I did.
A lot of grass.
They do.
Pick the long section you wanna keep.
That's the meeting, we'll be conducting joint business, there will be no,
We structured as a work session, so no formal vote.
okay, but that will be one of our meetings in August then. Okay.
Anybody have questions for Brian? Seem to be running a good tight ship.
Feels good. We're getting staffed up for just in time for summer, so. Always new things, but feeling good heading into the kind of peak season.
Are the trustees staying in their lane?
By the majority.
Okay,
Yes, you are.
all right. Hmm. Good. Anything else?
No.
Okay, well, we can take a 5-minute break before 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see we have some public commenters tonight. Welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting for the town of Buena Vista, Colorado. It's June 10th, 2025, and the time is 7:03 p.m. Please silence your cell phones. And Ed or Paula, would you call the roll, please?
Trustee Hike.
Here.
Trustee Rice.
Here.
Rosenauer.
Here.
Trustee Rowe.
Here.
Trustee Stern.
Here.
Trustee Swisher.
Here.
Mayor Fay.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Trustees, you have before you an agenda proposed for this evening. Are there any changes you would like to make in the agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have Hike and Swisher. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. And you also have the consent agenda, which has minutes from various advisory boards and commissions, the police chief report, planning director report, public works director report, town clerk report. Also is a resolution of the Board of Trustees appointing Mark Russell as a regular voting member of the Airport Advisory Committee. We thank him in advance for his service. Anyone have any changes in the consent agenda? Anything you'd like to pull out to be a business item or a further discussion?
Not anything I want to pull out, but I just, on page 57, the water production, the chart looks, unless I'm reading it wrong, looks a little wonky. But I got the gist of master meter production at over 14,000 million gallons and billed at just under 12. But the chart looks different.
Yeah.
You want further explanation of the chart from Ron?
Yeah, there's a couple discrepancies on there. Looks like, so I'd say the graph is wrong, the production table is correct.
That's what I was looking for. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments about the consent agenda? Okay, I'd like a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
So we have Sturm and Hike. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Now we have public comment. So there are quite a number of people who are here for that. So the people who have signed up would like to talk about building codes and the electric preferred question. So if anybody wants to speak on any topic other than the liquor license for La Serena, you need to sign in now on this public comment. So everybody else who would like to sign. Okay, so start with the building code. So Randy Crane,
Yes.
I'd like for you to approach the podium. It looks like you are a resident of the town of Buena Vista.
I own a residence at 423 Princeton Avenue that we're getting ready to remodel and move into. I've been a resident, I lived on Main Street for 31 years. I currently reside on County Road 327, but we're like I said, we're remodeling a 1930s house on Princeton Avenue. I'm very excited to move back into town. And we own a commercial residence at 655 Great Drive. You gotta excuse me, once the cottonwoods start flying, I sign it.
Sure. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
I want to thank the town council for the work that you do. You're in a tough position. I'm sure that half the population is upset about decisions you make, but I want to thank you for putting an effort into making good decisions. I believe that these proposed changes to the building codes represent the removal of the public's right to choose their preferred energy source. The citizens of Chaffey County should have the ability to utilize the energy source they desire without being penalized by any local governments. And if adopted, these rules create a point system for building a structure. If you want to utilize gas, you have to achieve a 20-point credits. If you want to build all electric, you only have to achieve 10 points of credits. Now, how these credits are awarded is not exactly clear to me, but I assume that each of the council members must be totally knowledgeable about how it works and what it will force homeowners to do or not to do. How else could you make a decision on this if you're not exactly clear on how these codes work? We constantly hear about the efficiency of electricity. There are many reports available that list the energy efficiency of electricity from the production point, which may be hundreds of miles away, to the consumer's residence as being anywhere from 90% all the way down to 32%. The typical energy efficiency of our product, propane, delivered to the consumer is 87%. So I want to thank you for listening to us, for allowing us to speak and being open to different ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Pat McCarthy. And looks like you are a resident of the town of Buena Vista as well.
Correct.
Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Pat McCarty. I live on Yale Ave. And tonight I'd like to express my concerns about adopting the electric preferred building code. I had a nice conversation with Chad from the building department, received a copy of the proposed changes. However, like Randy said, the credit system is still a little unclear to me on how it all works. My concerns are, why are we adopting Boulder County building codes? How is that county similar to ours? Why are we adopting a version of California codes that have been proven to increase cost? Refer you to the book Abundance by Ezra Klein for more on that. At the last meeting, it was mentioned not to trust these multi-million-dollar oil and gas companies. The environmental crisis is too urgent. And to an extent, I very much so agree with that. However, this isn't going to change things for that landscape. This will only make things more difficult for our builders and residents in our community. I'd also ask, how would that electricity be generated for this new demand? The answer is natural gas. Companies are working to phase out coal-fired power plants, but there's a long way to go before we get to 100% renewables. So why adopt these changes now? The state has had the mandate for the right electrification changes. We've adopted those, really excited about how those will come into effect and be in play. But why go above and beyond that? Why make utility bills more expensive? I see utility bills every day. Electric is the most expensive and least efficient way to heat your home in our mountain communities. Why do we want to incentivize people to be more reliant on the power energy grid and less efficient? Lastly, this will affect the multi-million-dollar oil and gas companies, but it will also hurt our family-owned propane business that has served this community for multiple generations and is a great environmentally friendly option with renewable potentials. I have to leave tonight, can't stay for the entire meeting. My wife's working at the ER in Salida and I have to go pick up our boys. But I just want to thank you all for your attention to my concerns. I want to thank you for your dedication to serving the town and the energy that goes into being a trustee. Your time is greatly appreciated. And Thank you. I'm happy to meet with anyone that would like to discuss these issues further. And with my last couple of seconds here, I'd like to just kind of leave you with a couple statistics. San Greater Cristo's average monthly residential electricity bill is almost 30% higher than state averages. And 2/3 of our electricity is generated from natural gas and coal. Although renewables are growing, there's still a long ways to go. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you. Rich Shoemaker. And Rich, it looks like you're a resident of the county, but not of the town of Buena Vista. Is that correct? Thank you.
Mayor, trustees, and town staff, thank you for allowing time for public comment on important issues like this that facing the town. My name is Rich Shoemaker. I've been a resident of Chaffey County since 2015 at 30709 Stampede Run in Buffalo Hills, just north of town. I'm here tonight to express my support for the model electric preferred amendments for Chaffey County's building code and respectfully request that the trustees adopt a resolution tonight in support of these amendments. I want to say I very much appreciate the time and all the careful debate that you all have invested in consideration of this complex issue, which is really the county's building code. So it's great that you all have considered this in such detail. So as you know, the electric preferred amendments add further incentives to build all electric homes by requiring mixed fuel homes to make up for the use of combustion equipment, basically natural gas and propane, with increased energy efficiency measures and other aspects of the home's construction. Adopting the electric preferred amendments offers several potential benefits, primarily centered around increasing energy efficiency, reducing environmental impacts, and potentially lowering long-term costs. So the amendments, the preferred electric amendment, encourage high-performance buildings since the focus is on energy efficiency. Means buildings constructed under these amendments will be more efficient regardless of the fuel source. And this will result in reduced energy consumption and operating costs. The amendments will also lower greenhouse gas emissions, provide cleaner air and a more sustainable energy future. In my opinion, the amendments provide flexibility for builders and owners. While they do promote all electric builds, the electric preferred approach still allows for mixed fuel buildings, which provides the flexibility to choose the most viable option while still working towards an overall goal of energy efficiency. The amendments will minimize future retrofit costs, and I have firsthand experience with this that I want to share with you. So I have a mixed fuel home built by Mark DeFurio in 2011. It's a very efficient home, very well insulated, good quality build, and I've been working towards making it all electric. I've added solar power, battery backup, an EV charger, and my future plans are when my natural gas furnace and on-demand water heaters go out, I will eventually replace those with heat pump equipment because my solar generates about 3,000 kilowatt hours more per year than I'm using right now, even with charging an EV. So I'm not going to get into all the details here, but building electric ready or electric preferred from the start eliminates the need for difficult and expensive retrofits to accommodate heat pumps and additional electrical loads. And I can attest to that because of limitations in my panel, limitations into where 240 is run in the garage. So that retrofitting is a consideration. Another thing to consider is that homes built with a more aggressive energy efficiency standards may be more competitive when applying for state grants related to green building requirements. So just to summarize, the electric preferred amendments to Chaffey County's building code aim to promote a transition towards efficient, high-performing buildings, contributing to a cleaner environment, reduced energy costs, and potentially more affordable housing options. So in closing, I appreciate your time, and I hope the trustees will look to the future and take action that results in a cleaner environment for our residents and our children, our grandchildren and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Allen. And you are a county resident, but not a town of Buena Vista resident.
Yes, that's correct. And just offering my heartfelt gratitude for all of the work that this council does to take care of our town of BV. I'm here to tell you about my firsthand experience with our propane system that we had installed against the advice of our builder, who wanted to put us into an all-electric home. But we're from New Mexico and we're cantankerous and we wanted propane, and that's what we paid for. And we paid a lot for it. We have a large boiler in our basement, which heats a hot water baseboard system and also domestic hot water, and in addition to cooking fuel. The system has not been very dependable, and I don't think that's a fault of the system. I think it's just because it's complicated, and if we didn't have a basement, all of those hot water pipes that feed all of our domestic hot water and our baseboard radiators would be in a slab, which would make them very difficult to repair if there were any failures. My husband has had to bleed the system of air many times, and we've had recalls from our plumber to deal with the extensive amount of plumbing that was there. And that's not all. It's slow to heat the house. And I've lived in all electric homes before, and this system is very slow to heat the house. Think about this. If you heat your bathroom, by the time your shower's over, you're still not getting any heat off the radiator because of the lag time of the propane. Also, our propane bills have increased. Every time we've ordered propane, the cost of propane has gone up. And sometimes when we get low or don't watch our gauge, which we have to go outside to and open the housing of the tank, we are not able to get propane. So we have a backup. We burn firewood for heating our house when we are not able to get propane. So what is working well is the tank system my husband installed under our kitchen sink, which is wonderful, and it's electric and we really love it. And at this point, we've invested so much in our propane system that to convert to solar, if we were even to want to do that, would be an additional very high expense. So we feel we are trapped by our lifeline to the propane company and all of the equipment that goes along with that. I think if we
out of time here.
I'm out of time.
Yeah.
Holy moly! I'm sorry. Please support the proposed change to the building.
Thank you. Matt Hakala. And Matt is a resident of the county, but not the town.
That's correct. Thank you all for your work, your effort, your time. What brings me to this meeting is just recognizing the difficulty of this situation when we have these systems that are in place. It's never going to be easy to change. But I am here to encourage you to be forward-thinking, recognizing that green energy is on the rise, propane and all fossil fuels are limited. And so just retrofitting, the cost of retrofitting, I feel like we're doing a great service to the environment, to future generations, to future homeowners, in these homes that, that have this capacity built in. I just think that this is, to incentivize this is responsible. It's not easy, but it's responsible and I feel it will pay off in many ways. So thank you for your time and thank you for your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Jared Cockley, who is a resident of the county, but not the town.
Good evening, guys. First, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for being here, taking care of our town. Everybody who came up with public comment. I'm a member of the community. I've been here for about 10 years and I'm a licensed plumber here. I install a lot of these systems for everybody. A lot of potential homeowners and builders. And it's my opinion that the most efficient systems that we can install are natural gas and propane systems. As far as installation goes, depends on what you get. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to how much your house is going to cost to heat, which is a big thing out here, obviously we're in the mountains, it's going to be the cheapest to go with one of those systems. I'm all for a greener future. But when it comes to these people like myself, my wife and I just bought property, we would like to be able to build and put in whatever kind of system best suits us. And that means whatever's probably going to be the cheapest month to month for me to be able to heat my house. Sure, I'm again all for the greener future, and I do see the merit in trying to push towards this thing, for this type of system in the future. I don't think the electrical systems are nearly as efficient, which means you're going to pay more, like I said, every month. I personally have an electric furnace in my rental right now, and it's about $500 a month to heat my house. I would much rather have a propane in-floor system, which I've done several around here that can be as low as $100, $150 a month to heat a multiple 1,000 square foot home. We've done this with the electric furnaces or electric boilers as well. But those are generally for a higher end client that has an extra $100,000 to put into a solar system. If you can afford that solar, that's awesome. And I thank you for doing that and helping us towards that greener future. For those of us that can't afford that kind of thing, we're looking at our monthly bills. We're trying to survive in a town that costs exponentially more every year, it seems, and we don't need to add on to that. So on behalf of the person that wants to build here and one that speaks with people building on a frequency or a high frequency, I'd just like to say reconsider and allow people to build with whatever's the most efficient thing for them at the time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Matt. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Another time around for me, I really appreciate that you all have given me an opportunity to speak and appreciate your time and work. My name is Matt Nykiel and I'm a resident of Chaffey County in Salida. This comments in support of the electric preferred amendments to the Chaffey County Building Code. I work for a nonprofit public interest environmental law firm, but I'm here in my personal capacity. My day job involves addressing pollution from oil and gas development, primarily at the federal and state level, so I don't generally have the opportunity to participate at the local level. But the impacts of climate change and the lack of federal leadership at the moment are so alarming to me that I felt compelled to try to do something positive in my own backyard. It's not a partisan issue for me, and it shouldn't be for anyone else. It's a health and safety issue. After finishing my undergraduate degree, I worked for 4 seasons as a wildland firefighter, 3 of which with the U.S. Forest Service, 3 of which were on this forest with the Pike Hotshot crew. In that work, I witnessed the impacts of climate change firsthand, and that experience was one of the reasons that I enrolled to study environmental law. When wildland firefighters are protecting our homes and our families, folks often put up signs thanking them, praising them for their courage, but those are just words. When we ought to be taking actions that actually reduce our contributions to elongated fire seasons, to hotter and drier temperatures that are actually increasingly putting firefighters in harm's way. As the board considers the proposal, I'd like to remind you that eventually we will all pay the cost of the pollution that we emit. and this valley presents an infamous example. As you know, gold was discovered in the Arkansas headwaters near Leadville in 1859. And for decades, mines discharged acid mine drainage, mine waste into the river. And for years, miners in the mining industry argued that the pollution wasn't harming downstream users or cattle ranchers or fish or wildlife. But it was, despite whatever the disagreement on the science was that existed at the time. Eventually, governments passed laws prohibiting the mining pollution and requiring the polluters to pay for the harm that they were doing to the public and to the environment. From then to now, mining companies declared bankruptcy, went out of business, the public environment was harmed, and taxpayers ultimately paid for significant portions of the cleanup and restoration. On a more positive note, the river went from unhealthy and declining fish populations to the gold medal fishery we have today. And it probably wasn't easy in those years for the elected officials to pass rules that prohibited that pollution, but we're the beneficiaries of their foresight and courage, as the river now plays such a vital and vibrant role in our community. So I challenge you all to have the foresight and courage of your predecessors and to take seriously what's in the best interest for us right now, but also what's in the best interest for all those families that will live here 100, 200 years from now. If you decline to support this, I would further challenge you to share with the community the alternative that you would recommend. What would your plan be for how we address and do our part to address climate change? Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. So that concludes public comment.
Mayor, we got
okay.
one online, there are two, it looks like.
Who's online?
Marjo Curtis.
Okay. Good evening, Marjo.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me a moment. As you know, I'm the interim executive director of the Chiefy Housing Authority, and I just want to provide some context as you consider the electric preferred code for this evening. I'm not taking an advocacy position, simply providing some additional context that the Housing Authority is committed to creating energy and water efficient, affordable housing. It's helping us to save money on operating costs, as well as bring down costs for residents each month on rents and home utility bills. You might be unaware that all affordable housing providers are required to include a utility allowance in considering the calculation of maximum allowable rents. State funding pools support the development of affordable housing and actually provide points in evaluating funding proposals for projects that achieve environmental sustainability. CHA and local developers are already integrating some of these practices into our development proposals. They're giving points for both walkable communities near public transportation and job centers, as well as water and energy efficiency, and also including the potential for all electric design. Recently in the crossings in BV, it was awarded a $4 million Prop 123 equity funding. And this is partially because they met those points for sustainable design, outcompeting other proposals. We are also working on the construction of Jane's Place in Salida, which this project already is integrating water and energy efficiency. We're all electric at the moment, utilizing water heat pumps for our 2 commercial spaces. We also received a HUD grant to include a solar array, which unfortunately was not able to be accommodated on site, but we're still exploring with Chaffee County the potential for repositioning a solar array off-site to provide energy to that project. Our experience in Chaffee County that inefficiently designed homes have a detrimental impact on housing stability. We're often put in a position to collaborate with the Department of Human Services and other community organizations to provide financial services to households to prevent people from becoming displaced from their homes because they're unable to pay rent and high, primarily winter utilities. So if the town were to adopt these standards from the perspective of the CHA, we find it consistent with the practices that we are already working towards to implement, and look forward to your decision tonight. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And then we have one more hand up. Is that right?
Yes, Kristen Jones.
Good evening.
Good evening. I want to say thank you, Madam Mayor, trustees, and staff. Thank you very much. My name is Briston Jones. I work for Atmos Energy, and we've been fortunate to be a part of this conversation the last couple of months here in Buena Vista and regarding Chaffee County as a whole, too. Atmos Energy holds to the philosophy of an all-of-the-above approach to ensure our customers have safe, affordable, and reliable energy to heat and cook. And you all have done such a great job managing this conversation. And we feel like this has just been a great forum for people to learn and get to know the issue a little bit better. We've enjoyed being a part of this, presenting, real solid, viable data, statistics, and locations to go and get that information. And we just want to make sure that the Board of Trustees knows that we're here to provide any additional information ongoing as you guys may need it. And so just again, want to say thank you. We appreciate the conversation and we appreciate your all service very much. Thank you very much for tonight and the last couple of months on this. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for your participation as well. So now that concludes public comment. We were handling this a little differently tonight because we thought that maybe having people disclose what their actual address is might be sort of an invasion of privacy. So therefore we're asking, or we're just commenting as to whether you're a town resident or not. So great. Now we are moving on to the public hearing, which has to do with a change of location of liquor license for Dragon Sushi. So let's see, we will start with our staff report from the clerk's office.
Thank you all. This public hearing is a continuation of the hearing from May 13th. And the board is being asked to consider the approval of a change of location permit for the hotel and restaurant liquor license for Dragon Sushi Bar LLC, doing business as Dragon Sushi Bar, currently located, or I should say previously located at 328 Charles Street to 710 Highway 24 North. Just for clarification, Sarah Hernandez has already opened up the restaurant at their new location, but they are not serving liquor. So when we had first got the application, they were still at the Charles Street location, and now they have already moved, but no liquor has been served. Okay, so on May 28, 2024, the Board of Trustees originally approved the hotel and restaurant license for their location on Charles Street. On April 10th, 2025, Ms. Hernandez submitted a permit application to report a change form for a change location permit. If approved, the permit allows the location tied to the hotel and restaurant liquor license to change from 328 Charles Street to 710 Highway 24 North. Ms. Hernandez is also submitting a change to the trade name from doing business as Dragon Sushi Bar to Latino's Restaurant and Dragon Sushi Bar. The Board of Trustees has no authority to grant or deny the change in the trade name. That is a function of the state. The application was set for public hearing before the Board of Trustees on May 13th, 2025. And the notice for the public hearing was published in the Chaffee County Times and posted on the property accordingly. At the time, the application had been deemed incomplete to be approved at the May 13th Board of Trustee meeting, and staff requested that it be continued to this evening. So as of June 5th, the following requirements to consider the approval of the change of locations have been met. On May 28th, Chaffee County Building Department approved the change of use for the building. A needs and desires petition of the neighborhood was circulated and included with the application. And as you know, the neighborhood is considered a mile within the place of business. The first application had several signatures that were outside that mile. And so Ms. Hernandez had to submit or circulate another petition, which she had successfully done, and it does now meet the requirements. Police Chief Dean Morgan, Planning Director Marika Kopp, Code Enforcement Officer Grant Bryans, Chaffey County Fire Protection District Chief Kara Jones, and Chaffey County Consumer Protection Specialist Stephanie Nelson have all signed off and given their approval for this change of location. So tonight, the trustees are being asked to consider a motion to approve the change of location permit for the hotel restaurant liquor license for Dragon Sushi Bar LLC from its current previous location of 328 Charles Street to their new location at 710 Highway 24. And Sarah Hernandez is here and her husband to talk. If you have any questions, share what their business plan is.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah, my husband Jose. We are the owners of Latinos Restaurant and Dragon Sushi Bar. As you may be aware, we have been in operations since May 2023. I'm sorry, 2024, yes. Since our opening day, we had a wonderful experience with the community who have been incredibly welcoming. For those who may not be familiar with the story, everything started 4 years ago when me and my husband came on vacations here to Buena Vista and we fell in love with the city. We decided to have a family here. So we moved from Florida to Colorado. We have a 2-year-old daughter who is an inspiration to every project that we have. Buena Vista is a lovely community. Living here has highlighted the need of more diversity food. It's not always easy to drive to the big cities to enjoy different kinds of meals with the family, especially with kids. Our experience with Dragon Sushi has been very positive, and we have established relationship also with a couple of local hotels. However, we required a larger space to meet not only the expectation, but also to increase the productivity and to increase the productivity, because now we're gonna be serving a couple of hotels in town. With over 5 years of experience operating between Florida and Colorado, we really hope that Latinos and Dragon Sushi will continue to be a preferred destination for creating lasting memories with your loved ones, and not only for our visitors, but also for our community. That's the main reason we decided to move to the new location, 710 US Highway 24. We have a really big space. We also added the Latin cuisine to the menu, and we also serving sushi and Japanese cuisine.
Very good. Questions from the trustees for our staff or for Ms. Hernandez? Do you have any questions? Do you have a lot more staff at your new restaurant?
Yes, we do.
And has your staff been properly trained on not over serving alcohol?
So the staff that we have at the front, they are the same ones that used to be in our old restaurant. So they have been trained already. They've been with us for more than 7 months, some of them. So they have been like very well trained about serving alcohol. We have more staff and newer staff, but in the kitchen and also in the sushi bar.
Thank you. No questions from trustees? Okay, public comment. Are there members of the public who would like to say anything, for or against the restaurant, or questions? Okay, I'll close public comment. The board has no questions. So we can discuss the liquor license change. If anyone has any comments they'd like to make on that. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of location permit for the hotel and restaurant liquor license for Dragon Sushi Bar LLC, DBA Dragon Sushi Bar.
Thank you, Devin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have Rowe and Rosenauer. All in favor of the approval of the liquor license change?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we're going to hear from our Water Advisory Board.
I'm gonna go first. So my name is Liz Daigle and I'm a member of the Water Advisory Board. And the reason I'm here tonight is to talk to you about the 2025 function and focus document. So as you may recall, we also did a version of this document last year. It was a 2024 version. Jeff presented that. The reason we're talking to you in February about the 2025 goals is just because have really packed agendas. So thanks for having us here tonight to talk about it. All right, so the function is unchanged. So the function of the Water Advisory Board, as documented, is to support the Board of Trustees to help develop, update, shepherd, and scope the water resource plans and issues, and to communicate with other town and related water resource agencies. So as you'll see on the screen as well, and you might have a copy with you, we have it broken out into current project focus, ongoing projects and program focus, and then you'll see prior accomplishments and focus from last year. So as you're aware, the Water Advisory Board is partnering with Swift Water on the Water Conservation Plan. So you heard from Al Smith earlier during a couple working sessions, so that work is continuing. For the Source Water Protection Plan implementation, we're hoping to research grant opportunities to support that implementation and to create emergency notification cards for emergency dispatch agencies. For Source Water Protection District regulations, we'd like to review for possible updates. Another point is the water distribution system modeling review. And as Jeff will present it momentarily, looking at the watershed vision and goals to ensure that we have a resilient watershed in our Cottonwood Creek, which provides town its water. And the last bullet in kind of the current project focus is diplomacy. Members of the Water Board did meet tonight before this meeting with U.S. Forest Service just to kind of learn more about some upcoming projects. So we're already starting to really partner with other agencies and to see what other things are happening that could impact our watershed, which could impact our water dependability, quality, and also looking at mitigation on fire impact as well, if there was fire events. So the ongoing projects and program focus, these are things that are more evergreen that will probably be more foundational. I'll just read through those quickly once I get into the right spot. So town trustees and water system staff support and advice on direction. I have to say with humility and appreciation, we have such knowledgeable and dedicated members of the Water Advisory Board. I'm just so happy that I get to be part of it and learn from all of you. So there's that. Truly coordinate and communicate with town and related water agencies, evaluate and advise on water quality, quantity, and dependability topics and issues. And as I mentioned, Jeff will go into more detail about the watershed protection. Jeff, what's that? Okay.
Well, as part two of the Water Advisory Report, I'm Jeff Ollinger. I'm a member of the Water Advisory Board. We have proposed Town of Buena Vista Watershed Forest Division and goals. The context of that is that we prepared this in a thorough process. We had a committee that worked on the original goal statement that was comprised of Chris and Liz and myself. Then we brought that to the overall board. The board made some adjustments to that, and then we thought about it, and then the board approved the goal statement as you see it proposed in front of you. Just to set the context a little bit more, there's three levels of water with regard to the influence of the town of Buena Vista. Of course, you have the water system that goes from the intake through the treatment and then out into the distribution system. The next level would be your source water protection plan area, which is an area of roughly about 5 mile radius out from your treatment facilities. And what this particular proposal is to go into the entire watershed, all the way up to the top of the drainage of South, Middle, and North Fork, so that there is a goal that the town has, or goals for the watershed. Just to mention why you might want to have watershed goals. One is for the town and its leaders to have agreed on and sanctioned goals. The town leaders being the source, or the water protection, the water advisory board, and the trustees as leaders getting together and then having this sanctioned statement of the goals. Another one is that the watershed is an important area of influence for the town, the entire watershed. It's a major recreation asset for the town residents, and it's a major recreation or asset for the town tourism and recreation business community. So it's important for the town to have goals and to have focus. The adopted goals are important to have a base with which to make comments on future projects that come before the town. For instance, those projects would be in watershed projects like commercial recreation, potential mining, timber industry projects, just to name a few. So it sets the foundation with which you go forward and make comments, as opposed to having arbitrary comments that are not based on having a goal level foundation. The fourth one and the last one that I'll mention, there are more, but the fourth one would be so that the town is putting its cards on the table with regard to the goals for the watershed. And then it makes it so that you'll be able to share adopted goals with other organizations and other projects to be able to take those goals and find similar goals in other organizations and other projects, form alliances and partnerships with organizations like the Forest Service, Chaffee County, the Upper Arkansas Watershed, or the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District, and other organizations. So it's important to have the ability to form alliances. And when you put your cards on the table by having goals, that's the beginning of alliance formation. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. The Water Advisory Board encourages the trustees to formally adopt the watershed goals.
So are there questions for the Water Advisory Board?
I just want to thank the board for coming in and Jeff and Liz for all the work to put this together. I think that these statements here can really help us as folks in the watershed are proposing projects that can, meet these goals. If they come to us for support, whether that be through match funding or just letters of support for it, this is something that we can look at to say, are these projects in the watershed achieving the vision and goals that are put forth today? And I think that's really helpful for us to be able to frame whether or not we're going to support projects that we see in the bigger watershed.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
So Chris, my understanding is one advantage if the board does formally adopt these vision and goals, and then there's an opportunity that comes along for the town to either participate in or lend support to, the mayor can write a letter and say, I'm the mayor, we talked about it and we think this is great. Or the mayor can write a letter and say, I'm the mayor, this project really aligns with our previously adopted vision and goals. The latter carries a lot more weight, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly would.
Yeah.
So this was described as an update. Are you looking for a head nod or any sort of approval of these goals?
I think at some point would they come back with this as a formal business item for us to adopt?
I'd say probably the easiest route. You could preface it with a resolution and put it on the consent agenda next time unless you have any recommended changes from the draft provided.
I'd be okay with it in the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your work.
Yeah.
Any objections to that? Okay, good. All right, now we can go into the discussion of the electric preferred proposal as an amendment to the 2021 building code that the county will work with. So who's presenting here?
I suppose I can introduce the topic. At this point, this is the third meeting that has been discussed. In the packet, I did provide kind of a summary or recap of how we got here. Beyond that, there has been numerous presentations made from multiple interested individuals or agencies, and then also a pretty good long list of reference documents. The last agenda item discussed on May 13th requested that a resolution be brought forward for consideration, which has been drafted and included in the packet. One question that came out of the last meeting, specifically asking for clarification, was as far as if a small addition or remodeling is conducted in an existing residential unit or building, what is the threshold to then now have to come into compliance? The response was 50% of the existing building or more. That was provided by Mr. Chadwick, our Chaffey County building official, and he's also here to field any questions the board might have. But at this point, kind of structured it in a way for the board to finalize discussion and determine which direction you want to go.
So is that 50% square footage increase?
You'll be able to put in.
Yeah, or you can just answer from there.
Okay, yeah, it's an increase of 50% or an alteration that is 50% of the existing structure. That comes directly out of the 2021 International Existing Building Code, and that's the code we use, and that's also the threshold that I put in the adoption for the Colorado model electric and solar ready code that we've already, the legislator left that up to the jurisdictions to decide the threshold. I just used the building code, the existing building code for that.
Great, thank you for answering that. Questions, Maggie?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following correctly. So if I'm moving into an old cabin that needs a complete inside tear down and restart, nothing on the outside is changing. I'm not changing square footage, but everything on the inside is changing, taken down to the studs. Would I have to then update to the current code?
Everything that you touch that's new would have to update to the current code. But I want to remind you that the electric preferred code is more of an option. It's not necessarily a requirement. It's the option of the homeowner or the builder to use those incentives that it offers. So you can opt out of it completely if that's your choice.
Even on
You
new
can opt
construction?
out, but it would cost.
So what would it cost?
But it would be,
The
so
question.
the incentives are the difference. So what it is in the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, there's the prescriptive requirements and some other pathways to compliance for residential and commercial. And then there's also total building performance. That's what the electric preferred code would affect, is the total building performance at the end, where there's several items and you need to meet, I believe, 2 of those items to make the points on the table. And I think I provided a lot of the stuff on this, but you need to meet so many of those items, and that's where the excuse me, that's where the points come into play. So you have to meet the standard prescriptive method or other pathway of compliance in the code as it is anyway. And then the total building performance at the end is where, you know, where it's how the total building operates energy efficiently is what that is affects. I know it's kind of hard to understand unless you've
I
read.
guess I don't see what's optional about that.
Well, so you can still use mixed fuel if you like. You can still use all gas if you like. I mean, it's an option. The electric preferred just offers incentives in that total building performance. So you would have to meet a little more of the total building performance if you decide to go mixed fuel, and a little less if you decide to go electric.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, one more
So
question.
electric doesn't have to be as efficient as gas? Is that basically what you're saying?
It needs to meet the same efficiencies of the prescriptive method of the code, but as far as total building performance, it would be slightly less in the total building performance category, yes.
Maggie.
Have we received, I received the email back from April where it included some of our current code with highlights, but I kind of missed as to what that would change. Have we received a draft of the updated code, what electric preferred would look like? Because
I have not drafted it yet. I plan on using some of the other resolutions as a template. But I was instructed by the commissioners to kind of draft it in such a way that works for our community. We don't have to do exactly, this is an optional thing. It's not required. So we don't have to do exactly what other counties have done. We can adjust it for what works for us.
do we have a draft of that or not yet?
This is just a resolution to say we support the county in starting their own process, which will include public comment, drafts.
And then it would come back to us before it would be officially adopted.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure it's clear because there's a lot of talk going on. So I want to make sure I have my facts clear that right now, if you were to build a new home or do 50% or more, you're required to be electric ready.
Yes.
This would then incentivize electric preferred. You could still do whatever you'd like, but you're not going to be able to get as much of a break on your building if it's anything other than electric preferred. But we don't know what those breaks will be until we say, okay, we support, and then it'll come back to us. Everybody in the county would then have to agree. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, real quick. What climate zone is BV in?
6. 6B.
6B. Does that require a redundant heat source in the structures?
It does not, as long as you have one thermostatically controlled heat source.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It does not, as long as you have one thermostatically controlled heat source, that meets the code requirements.
One of the things I did read in some of the documents that were required was there were some caveats for climate zones higher than 5 with heat pumps being able to be the sole supplier of heat for that structure. Are heat pumps allowed as the sole source of heat supply in climate zone 6?
Yes.
I can speak. Or do you have a question?
I do. Are we also looking at including on-site solar energy use as an incentivized piece to this? Thinking that the end goal of dropping greenhouse gas emissions, dropping our carbon emissions. Are we also going to be including something that would incentivize solar use at that site?
Absolutely good. That makes good sense.
I mean, it feels like if that's our end goal, solar is a really great way to get us there. And I didn't capture any of that in the documents provided so far. So I feel like if we're really talking about climate change, which I absolutely understand the seriousness of, if we're doing that, then, instead of just using words like preferred, we incentivize things that will make those actions in the same vein of having public transportation. If we're going to reduce our, greenhouse gas emissions, public transportation is a really great way to do that. So I just want to make sure that with what we're doing with our resolution, that we're looking at all of those things as well.
So you'd want to add solar into it as one of the ways that you would be improving the.
I mean, absolutely. If that includes the aspect of, if I want to make sure that I have redundancy for my family, one of the comments earlier that going forward, my monthly bill will be attainable because it is expensive to live here. solar would help do that and would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so I feel like if that's our end goal, then we should be doing everything we can to incentivize on-use solar, because it is very expensive. And if you don't have that $100,000 to do it up front, there's not a whole lot of help out there for that in the state. So that to me would be, if we're really trying to chomp at that apple, get to the end of the day, then let's put in things that are actually going to make action, not just words and extra code.
Chris?
It's my understanding that Salida is the only municipality that's weighed in on this so far. Is that still true, or has Poncha taken any action?
Poncha has not. We met with Poncha once. We're planning on presenting it to them again, as the commissioners have requested. It does fit into the commissioners and the county sustainability plan that they adopted. So that's why I'm here.
So if this board and Poncha were to punt on it, are the commissioners going to be considering the new electric preferred regardless? Is there discussion on that?
I think if both municipalities that are left punt on it, then I would ask the commissioners for additional guidance on what they would like to do.
So there's nothing formally scheduled yet for the commission?
No, I want to get everything through the municipalities first. Just feel out where everybody was at on this subject. That's also why I haven't dropped it.
I'm going to vote in support of the resolution. It's a resolution giving the county feedback that yes, we support the concept of updating our building codes in a way that supports energy efficiency, energy independence, electric preferred, but that it doesn't actually commit us to anything. It just says, yes, please go forth and explore these options. These are some good values to look into. I think at some point, candles were cheaper than a light bulb, right? But man, sucks if you bought a house in 1920 and it was retrofitted 100 years before, right? We're building, this applies to new builds that will not be constructed in the future. If you don't want an electric preferred house, feel free to buy any other house in the entire county, right? This is about houses that are supposed to last 50 to 100 years. Electricity is going to continue to change. Propane is in an unstable place. It always is. I just think it's better for the environment. It's better for the consumer, and it still gives builders and consumers a ton of choice in terms of what types of house they want to buy, what types of house they want to build, et cetera. So it doesn't require anything. It just gives you a discount on other parts of your build requirements should you decide to go electric allowance. I think it's a good choice for everybody, and it's not committing the county to anything for us to say, let's explore this more. So I plan to vote in support.
So if we're just, like, I understand that, and I really appreciate the way you've broken that out for us, but that begs the question then, if the county goes forth to explore it, how is the town of Buena Vista then involved? Are we just sort of through the normal public input process, or would we be engaged differently?
As far as how we adopted the conservation code?
Yeah, the 2021. Yeah, what we did with that, but that was, I mean, the county had pulled that together and did all the heavy lifting when we adopted the 2021 building code, the whole suite of codes, including the energy, solar ready, et cetera, right? And those are a couple mandated ones, but the county did it all. We brought it. It was Pat Green at the time. He came, he held a work session with the board, ran through what was in the code, and gave, I think it was at least a month or maybe 2 months of ability to kind of process, gather public input, et cetera, before the code, before the vote on the code took place, with potential for changes within that. And then once it was approved, the effective date wasn't for a couple months later. It wasn't until the start of the year, but then it was extended to March of 2024. So there was probably 5 months for people to kind of do some projects and get in the old code before the new one. So that's how that process happened.
Yes, Joe.
I guess some clarity I'm looking for is that, I feel like it's become a choice between propane and electric and which one you support. And this, tell me if I'm wrong, but this is not penalizing if you choose to use mixed gas or all gas. It's just incentivizing electric, which is a higher cost for install. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's an important point to highlight, is that we're not penalizing gas. We're not saying you can't do it. I think that supporting this is just incentivizing people to go all electric, which is better for the environment and is a lot more expensive for the install.
Cindy?
I am not in favor of giving preference to electricity over natural gas. In the last meetings, I've explained some why. The cost to the users. Some of the people sitting out there in the audience are living in 3,000 square foot plus homes. They don't have the struggle or the same income as someone that is living in a small home trying to raise their family. So the cost of an electric bill is not that big of a deal for them. And some people actually have a preference. I think it's up to your neighbor or the government to decide which that you should have. Chad had said something about gas inspections being harder to perform than electrical. I couldn't find any data on that anywhere on the internet. And is it really that much more difficult, or does your department need more training in gas inspections? Building codes were invented so we had safe buildings. Just because your building has natural gas does not mean it's not safe, that it can't be, that it isn't. It's been that way for years. We're going for affordable for what people trying to make housing more affordable. As you tack on more and more building codes, you're just making it harder and harder to build affordable. People do conservation in other ways. If we do a preference over electrical, we could be missing out on what natural gas comes forward with in the future. I think it's a little premature at this time when we use natural gas to produce electricity to say that natural gas isn't as good as electricity when you're using natural gas to produce electricity. I realize that the windmills and the solar panels and all that provide a lot, but we need to get them more recyclable before we want them in mass production. Those blades on those things are longer than railroad cars. They take up about 2 railroad cars. At this point, they are trying to make them out of something that would be recyclable. At this point, they are not recyclable. All those blades have a 10 to 15-year lifespan. They're being buried in the ground. So when you guys are saying carbon footprint and that electric is so much greener, you've got to take into the side effects of what is creating that and the byproduct of what needs disposed of. I am not in favor of it at this time.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, I have a couple different thoughts. I think I'll start by saying I'm not in favor of it either. And in the interest of time, I'll shut up. No, I'd like to respond to a couple of things. Mr. Nikhil gave us a letter. And I want to make sure I was real clear. I think I was maybe misinterpreted because I don't want this to seem like a straw man argument. My comment in the last meeting was I was concerned about whether whether the juice is worth the squeeze. And my comment there was there's absolutely some benefit for this. Have the costs been properly accounted for? Do the costs justify that benefit? I think in his letter, he basically says that, this argument to be correct, one would not have to believe that the current forecasted greenhouse pollution poses no immediate threat to our community nor a threat to future generations. I want to be very clear that I totally understand and I'm not at all advocating to discount the effect of greenhouse gas. Like, we absolutely have to get a handle on that as a culture, as a society. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So I want to be very clear. My comment there is not, I put my head in the sand that there's not a problem. My concern is this a wise step to take at this point in time? Have the cost been properly accounted for? We've been given a heat pump study from 2022. Things are changing really, really fast. I don't know, is there any chance we could bring that up? I would like to point to one question I have with that study. Oh boy, sorry about that. Okay. While he's going in that direction, it's one of my other concerns here is that the demand for electricity is growing way faster than we're able to produce it. We are locked into producing electricity with natural gas for the foreseeable future. There's just no way around it. I don't know if I forwarded to a couple of you guys this article in the Colorado Sun from Monday. His article is Electric Gridlock. Can the growing West infrastructure evolve fast enough to keep the lights on? Demand for electricity is outstripping the grid's capacity. The expert, this quote in this article said, we did an assessment of the resource adequacy in November that basically said under current circumstances, the pace and magnitude of growth is greater than the resources available to meet that load. So it's much faster to create demand than it is to create supply. So with that increasing supply, we're locked into probably creating electricity with natural gas for the foreseeable future. So this just does more to put more demand on the grid when there may be other more environmentally friendly ways to meet that energy demand. I think from a market perspective, if you stifle the market, you stifle innovation. Whether the costs have been properly accounted for, I think things change pretty rapidly. So that's the 2020 study, page 9. The footnote 26. The costs presented in this memo are from 2021. We're in 2024, so we're a few years later. And we assumed a modest annual price escalation in addition to inflation, 0.5%. We used a 0.5% annual escalation for electricity. The Colorado Energy Navigation Web Tool just a few months ago put out a statistic that electric rates in Colorado have increased 24% since 2021. So this is probably good data in 2022, but in recent years, our electric rates are going through the roof. I mean, there's a 24%. So that's 24% versus a 0.5% escalation. That's roughly, 40 or 50-fold difference in your escalation rate. We had one public comment about the cost for utilities. I think there was a comment on our Valley Voice about someone heating their home with gas, heating their home with electricity is very expensive. This will place a burden on those folks who are heating with electricity in the very near future. My third reticence with this is also looking at the Colorado's greenhouse gas roadmap. Let me find where that is. It holds open the possibility for mixing green energy into the natural gas distribution system with the potential for air capture of carbon dioxide as feedstock for synthetic methane. There's technology looking at ways to supplement natural gas with other gases with hydrogen or synthetically produced methane. And so if you steer the market away from gas distribution, we foreclose the opportunity for another option to come to market in a few years. And so the quote in Matt's letter, other gas decarbonization strategies are either technologically nascent, unproven, or limited in availability. You could make that exact same quote about solar panels 25 years ago and windmills 15 years ago. You know, the market evolves. And I think when you stifle a market by penalizing the use of natural gas, we foreclose the opportunity. There may be ways in the future, we have to place some faith in technology to evolve on all fronts to fight greenhouse gas emissions. So my opposition is not to fight greenhouse gas. I just think this is not a prudent step to take at this time. Furthermore, when Matt says, and again, I'm not picking on you, Matt, you've just given a lot of, we've had a lot of conversation here. You've been here 3 times. We do not have the benefit of federal climate leadership. There's probably no debate on that topic. We do have the benefit of probably the most proactive climate leadership in all the country in Colorado. I think second, probably only to California. So I think we have some state level proactive environmental leadership. I think you guys have said these regulations are coming down from the state in a couple of years anyway, and we should just get ahead of it. I don't see the benefit in getting ahead of it when it locks us into more electric demand on the grid, when the grid is not able to handle the demand that's coming on it right now. So that's my rationale to you guys of why I'm not in favor of it. It's not that I'm anti-environmentalist. I just don't think this is a prudent step at this time.
Yeah, I think it's been said that it's not penalizing natural gas, it's incentivizing electricity, which I think is a clarity thing for me personally, is that if it was penalizing natural gas or propane, I would see it differently, but because it's incentivizing all electric, I see it as a better path.
And I think when I boil it down, what Cindy said earlier is it allows you to build a less, if the envelope requirements and the performance requirements for the structure are higher if you use mixed fuel. So you have to build a more expensive house with more insulation if you heat with natural gas. So you can build a less efficient house if you heat with electricity. So that puts a government imposed market force on the market to drive people away from heating with natural gas.
Right, it's an incentive, but it's not a penalty on natural gas. That's how incentives work. That's why natural gas is cheaper, because we also incentivize it with.
It's 2 sides of the same coin.
No, it's not 2 sides.
It's a government force on the market.
Sure, but it's not a penalty. A penalty would be a fee, a tax, something like that. This is an incentive and that you get a discount. It's not 2 sides of the same coin.
But the intent is to discourage the use of gas.
Giving preference.
That's right.
To
It's not
nature.
it's not any more difficult to build natural gas, should this pass, than it is today.
The intent is to discourage the use of natural gas, and it forces us into more and more a plastic-oriented future. We have to put more plastics in the house, more spray foam insulation, more plastic in solar panels, more plastic in windmills, and I think we're finding that the plastic is going to be a major source of environmental pollution from sea to sun sea.
Yeah.
And what we're going to find, I would hazard a bet in 30 or 40 years, the spray foam insulation that's in all these houses are going to be the same thing as asbestos. It's going to degrade with time and create an airborne hazard for people living inside these spray foam houses. So there's no solution. There's only trade-offs.
I'd recommend.
Sorry you're sighing, and
I just recommend that we go ahead and vote. I think we've had this conversation
We don't have a motion on the table.
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution to support the county in moving forward with energy preferred building codes.
I'll second that.
So we have Rosenauer and Rowe. Let's do a roll call. Of course.
Discussion.
Oh, sure.
Is
there more discussion?
I just, because I know I have to go first on roll call. So I just want to make it really clear. I fully support the county looking for ways to update our building code to reduce the overall greenhouse gas emissions from Chaffee County, not just in building codes, and all of our codes and all of the things we do. I am not ready with the information that has been presented today, because the resolution states, now therefore it be it resolved that the Board of Trustees in the town of Buena Vista hereby supports the Board of Chaffee County Commissioners in formally adopting the model electric preferred amendments to the 2021 IECC. Until we see documents that show this resolution, I can't sign, because it states that we're supporting you to go do that. And I think it needs to be a grander scope. I think it needs to be, if we're really truly trying to eat that apple, that we take that first bite and we step back and look and see if we're electric ready now, what really will the difference of electric preferred do? Not just for the new builds, but for the people that are living on our grid right now that can't afford it already. And if we don't have a guarantee, and it's a genuine concern. I live paycheck to paycheck. I'm very upfront about that. And it scares me that if in 5 years, all of these new builds have taken the incentive, you know, to be electric only, electric preferred, that's what you guys wanted us to do, right? And then in 5 years, I can't turn my lights on because I can't, and I already can't afford to heat my home with electric. And other than my fireplace, that is my option. So we wear 5 layers. And that scares me for the future because we don't know what the unintended consequence of this may be. So as it stands today, for this resolution, because it does state that we support you formally adopting the model electric preferred amendments, that we don't know what they are, that for today, I would vote no. And it's not because I don't love our earth. Mother Earth is what keeps us all here. It's because I think we could do bigger and better without choosing one utility over another if we take a look at that end goal. So that's what I'm going to say about that.
I'll just say, I'm not intending to argue with any of y'all or for y'all. It's my job to share my perspective and cast my vote and not get my way. So we don't know what the future holds. I think it's a bit of a, there may be other options in the future to reduce greenhouse gases that are just as effective. And one other thing, and I think a hodgepodge of municipalities with different levels of mix and match, and it's like your salad bar picking your different requirements. I think a hodgepodge of framework is not helpful on a statewide level. If this is coming from the state, we should let it come from the state.
More discussion? Roll call.
Just to be clear, the motion is to accept. So I'm going to say nay.
Mr. Rice.
Nay.
Mr. Rosenauer.
Aye.
Trustee Rowe.
Yes.
Trustee Stern.
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Nay. It's our first tie.
It's taken you 3 years to get to this. I've had a perfect record.
Tonight's night.
So, call the roll. Sorry. Call the.
Mayor Fay.
I would vote yes, mostly because it's a step in the direction of controlling greenhouse gases.
Motion carries.
Motion passes. Okay. So now we'll move on to the Colorado Center Planned Unit Development, Public Improvement Acceptance. Page 94 of your packet. This is Joel.
Yeah, thank you. Probably a little less dramatic. As you all know, with subdivision's often accompanied by a public improvement agreement, which outlines responsibilities of a developer to complete certain public improvements prior to those acceptance, 2-year warranty, and then those acceptance by the town of those public improvements to take those within the town. So with the Colorado Center PUD Phase 1, Colorado Center started in 2006, and the developer passed away 2 years ago. During Phase 1 was still going on. Most of everything was done, but not all of them. After Mr. Southern's passing, virtually all of the properties were rezoned away from the PUD and into a I-1 zoning. with the exception of one property that was rezoned last meeting. And so there is no PUD that exists. There's no one, no developer, and there's these outstanding public improvements. And normally, after the 2-year warranty period, when the town is ready to accept those public improvements, there's a letter of acceptance provided to the developer saying, hey, we accept these, this is ours. It goes to the county assessor changes their database. And so like roads show up as town roads, for example. And we have them. And they become town assets. This did not happen for the Colorado Center. And so this is simply a way to clean up and finish out that Colorado Center PUD, the phase 1. No other phases have happened or been discussed. And so just phase 1, the things that remain are very minor in scope. It's kind of something we ought to do, but of course that's up to the discretion of the board. And before you is resolution number 44, that would, if you were to approve it, would accept that infrastructure for phase 1. Sean is here if you guys have any questions on the project or any of the infrastructure. So with that, I will open up back to the trustees.
What's the approximate cost to finish out these improvements?
It's pretty minor. There's some minor deficiencies. An elevation issue with the sewer manhole impacted the desired 2% crown of the road, kind of on the east end, and that was kind of the big one. We had some, I think early on, so we all kind of inherited this thing. This project started in 2006. The project, I don't think, maybe Joe was here, if anybody was.
Sean was here.
But I don't think so. I don't think Joe was here quite yet either, so yeah, it was a project that extended it to 2019 to get complete. I think it started in 2006. So I think there was a small phase that was accepted maybe in 2014 or 2015, and the rest of the remaining of the work hadn't started. So Public Works was provided the opportunity to do the inspections for the underground inspections that we participate with, mostly with water, subgrade preparation, submittals. So we got to look at the pipe material that was installed, fire hydrant specifications and area depth. And so we've done all the inspections with that. Subgrade prep for the road construction, we're involved with that as well. This team that I'm working with. Yeah, there was a few minor items that were captured for correction, and they weren't corrected. It's not much. It's probably, maybe $10,000.
Thank you.
There's the only other one that's kind of outstanding is the as-built. By doing the inspection within the, watching the pipe get installed, seeing where the isolation valves are located, they would probably get to capture the surveying. Have an as-built from that was one of the requests we had as well. So probably the biggest one.
So Sean, you see there's no major concerns with any of the infrastructure?
Not really. If I could go back in time, I would say don't build it all that way, but it was approved to be constructed. But yeah.
If there were major concerns, there's no real recourse.
So I think
So we have no option. Let's just close it out.
Yeah. I think some of the items that we've had, I guess, the opportunity to kind of look at the project's useful life since the preliminary. I think it's been about 3 or 4 years. Look at it. So it's holding up. It's holding up pretty well. Stop signs, street signs, those are all installed. There's a list of OPCs captured with the original PUD agreement. A couple of the items in there that aren't installed, I don't think we want them. I think we're fine not having them installed. door-wise, things like that.
I'll move we adopt resolution 44, accepting infrastructure for phase 1 of Colorado Center PUD.
Second.
That's Rice and Swisher. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you all.
I mean, we're done.
Yeah.
Colorado Center is gone
Yes.
forever.
End of an era.
Can we light it all on fire?
No.
It's ours now.
Just the document.
People love when we talk about that on camera.
Yeah, I want to satisfy again.
No. We're literally never getting married.
It's been this weird little thing for a long time.
So we'll move on to trustee staff interaction. I just want to thank everybody for, getting through these tough discussions and, most of the time we've been able to come, to a 5-1, 6-0 outcome. And it's taken us 3 years to get to where it's tied, but it was tied and you could just see it coming that was how this was going to end tonight. But at least now we can move on to other things and thank you all for your patience and for, not getting irritated with each other.
You did good. We need to give you more opportunities like that.
No.
Bring us more divisive things.
I've got one next.
Let's talk about short term.
I've got one next time, actually.
Not divisive, there's just differing views. There's
Different viewpoints, and I will say, having split board periodically is healthy. It's a healthy thing for a board. You don't want just a one group think all the time, and so it is healthy to have a split board at times. And I'm serious, the next one is going to include one that I'm pretty sure you guys are split on, which is Flock, one more time to get it out of the way. But I didn't put them on the same meeting intentionally.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a fight on.
We must. I'll drink coffee and take a Xanax next time.
Yeah.
Andrew?
But I will say divisive has a lot to do with behavior and tone, and I hope that we can continue to air different perspectives in a very constructive and professional
Yes, I agree.
and respectful manner.
Absolutely.
So thank y'all for doing that. Last fall, we did a breakfast for the staff as the trustees. I know the trustees enjoyed it.
All
Did it make a
except for
difference?
the 8 o'clock.
It was really early in the morning.
Yeah, can we do like a lunch this time?
Was that something that was received well enough to try to do again?
Yes, I think it is it's a valuable thing to do. I think it was well received. We kind of talked about, before summer, after summer, we do a staff internal before summer lunch, and so we did that recently, and so definitely think we should do it again, but kind of had it kind of earmarked for around the same time period as last year.
When was that?
It was kind of after summer, before really getting into holiday season, and so kind of that September, October time period.
Cool. And I'll take some lessons on how not to permanently bond eggs to the pan for
How
some.
about we just do lunch instead of breakfast? Just no 8 o'clock, no 8 o'clock.
I think it was like 7.
It was early.
For the suckers that signed up for that.
Better, I'm gonna give you the wad at 10-4.
Anyway, I just want to throw it out, if that is something to be considered, not to try to broach it at the last minute.
Yep.
Love it.
Maggie?
Shout out to the planning team that came out, Marika and Carly, came out to do a comp plan update May 31st at the park or the library. So just a big thanks that they made it and hopefully got some really good feedback, and I'm excited to see it all come together. That's all I got.
Marika was here for a minute tonight and then she left. Is she okay?
Yeah, she didn't have anything on the agenda. She wanted to see the public comment.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She was really
Advantage of
invested.
Not having.
The fun meter got paid.
Yeah.
I should have also shouted out to Nick, Marika's fiance. He was there all day too. So shout out Nick if he's listening.
Cool. Cindy?
rodeo is this weekend for people that are interested in that. It's an old-time Vista event. Saturday evening and Sunday afternoon. Good time.
Where's that?
At the rodeo.
At the rodeo.
Rodeo girl.
Never dance Friday night, ought to be, yeah.
You got those new lights up there?
I haven't been to the rodeo in a few years.
Oh, it's so fun, so crowded.
You should go.
Yeah, it gets really crowded, go early.
What's that mean?
We could have trustee night at the rodeo.
Maybe we could have our own belt buckles.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be collecting your money as you drive through.
Oh, well,
Are you
volunteering
out of the gate? I'll come hang out with you.
Devin, what you got?
I attended the Monarch presentation plan. Was it last week? I think I was the only elected official there. There was a lot of people there. It's not very often where I go to these meetings and don't recognize really anyone except for like Chrissy Goon. And that was pretty much it. So it was an awesome presentation about what's going on at Monarch, considering they're, a huge revenue source for this valley. Their biggest thing that's happening is the No Name Basin, which is expanding their area. So the skiable area of Monarch is almost 800 acres. So this basin is adding 377 acres. So it's almost adding 50%. And another lift. And it's eventually they'll have like a warming hut down below, but I think it's going to really make Monarch a more attractive area. For me personally, I've been getting a little bored of it sometimes, so I'll be excited to have something else to go to. And also, us locals at the ski area kind of complain that it gets crowded on the weekends, but it's nowhere near like the Vale, where you're waiting 15 minutes here instead of like hours at Vale or a place like that. So I think this is gonna make those wait times even less, and it's also gonna bring, they said around 12 to 20 jobs or more up there, so that's also great. It was a good discussion on their future and what they're looking to do. They're looking to improve a little more parking up there. I asked a question about transportation that became a whole discussion because I was like, why don't you have a shuttle up there? And they're like, well, we don't know. And I'm like, well, if you don't try it, then you don't know if it works. So we had a good discussion about that. And I talked with Miles a bunch afterwards about that, and that the county is really working hard to try to get some better transportation here in the valley. So it was a cool little discussion, and it's called No Name Basin, not because it didn't have a name, but it's the historic name of the creek. So a lot of people have been asking them, why are you calling it No Name? Are you going to change it? It's the name of the creek is No Name. And the basin is No Name. And they named a lot of the trails after historic names of the area. So that's pretty cool too. It's a great little mountain.
It's got some good history too.
Yeah.
Old stone walls built by the Native Americans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Really neat. Thanks for going.
Yeah, it was cool.
Chris?
Just a couple quick things. The dedication of the theater for my daughter, the Emory Theater, was wonderful. It was a packed house. I don't know if we'll ever see that theater that full again. Encourage y'all to go down and check it out at Salida East. And if you want to use it for a formal capacity, it is available. You just have to contact the Arkansas Headwater Recreation Area, and it's wide open for the public with no cost. And then the other thing is just to remind everybody that town's getting busier again, and the kids are out of school, and we all have different levels of awareness when we're out there, and just to be patient with everybody and to watch out for the pedestrians and the cyclists, and more importantly, the people that are driving. It's a really good time of year to just check ourselves. And remember that everybody wants to be here this time of year. It's absolutely beautiful and we need to be patient.
Can I add a quick explanation point to Chris's comment? That theater is super cool. If y'all, I went down there for it, and if y'all are, yeah, if y'all are that side of East, check it out. It's really cool.
Hello, Mika, what would you like to add to the evening?
Nothing for me tonight.
Nothing?
It's Juneteenth next Thursday.
Yeah.
Get out and play.
Yeah.
Celebrate freedom. That's all for me. And I love the sidewalks that you're working on over by Baylor in the high school. So thank you for
Yeah, those look really nice.
Gotta go do a drive by.
Sean?
Well, just it's privileged to watch you guys work. Very diverse, talented group of people. So it's kind of cool to watch you guys get twisted up a little bit tonight. So, I really appreciate your relationship with each other. So as a community member, I think, just recognize that. We're waiting on a couple things that we identified for the DPCA kid presentation that we did. So yeah, I got twisted up with one of our sign vendors. So the pet crossings, but a lot of those amenities and signs have been installed. So if you take a look down Main Street and down at the River Park, you'll see some of those improvements are up. Also privileged to work with the Water Advisory Board. So while you guys were in here doing a work session, we were over there talking to forest folk and looking at some future projects that are likely to be coming into our area. So some of our watershed protection, some of their goals. They're working on their environmental assessments this year, and maybe likely to see some project planning, funding, check boxes done this year, this fall, this winter, and maybe come back and kind of show you the Jones Bald Mountain and chocolate projects that they're proposing to do. They offered a field trip for the Water Advisory Board. So the trustee liaisons or any of the trustees that might be interested in doing that, we're gonna probably take up on that. And resolution.
That's you.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for that. Yeah.
Ed?
Nothing from there.
Brian?
We finished up our kind of milestone anniversaries this year for staff. Acknowledge them all at once. Judy, started with Judy Nyberg. She's been here for 20 years. Jay was 25 last year, so we'll throw him in there, but we've kind of created a structure to kind of acknowledge these things, 10, 15, 20, 25. So we had Judy at 20, we had Dean at 15 that some of you showed up to, and then Sean had a surprise 20-year.
Way to go,
So that was special. Had a nice lunch with everybody. So yeah, it's pretty impressive. Joel's been around that long, but he's like moved around. So
Got too many jobs.
Yeah. What day he started, so.
No cake for you, Joel.
Yeah. That's all I got. Catherine's here tonight.
Oh,
Thank you,
yes,
Catherine.
Catherine. You like to add anything?
I don't have anything for you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, a couple of real quick things. One, the land swap CPW is happening. The paperwork's all done, except it's been sitting on the AG's desk for a couple weeks, but now it's on the controller's desk. And anytime it'll be signed, and then you'll sign it, and then we'll close. Anytime. I put in a little note in here that we went down to St. Charles Mesa. I wrote that note before we went, assuming things would go okay. So there are no details provided to you, but it was a good meeting. They were all kind of water operators there. We learned some really insightful tidbits on their distribution system and how they manage and work. Super interesting. And good progress. I think we'll have, we'll see some good stuff come out of that. So, and then comp plan, you mentioned the comp plan, we had that draft update. I know there's the subcontractors kind of bruised the gin a little bit on the formatting piece of it, but if you guys take a look at like any substantive stuff, and the sooner you can get it back to the planning department, then we can have the contractors start to integrate some stuff. We have been going through and have given them tremendous amount of feedback, and we're receiving some other community feedback and such too. So anyway, that's it. So thanks for taking a look at that comp plan too.
I guess I should have said in my brief statement that I just got back from my 50th reunion from college. I believe all that time has gone by, but 50 years.
That's too quick.
That was back before you had a college email.
That's right. Or microwave.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Great, we have Ro and Ike. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. The motion passes. Thank you all.
One of her, I don't think it was her 50th. She was at but it was less than.
Less than 50, yeah.
I think she graduated.
Oh, yeah?
Really nice.
I was
Okay, yeah.
with a 5-year-old little girl, it was really hard to see.
How many people were there from your class?
Well, about
I
100.
used to rap with this guy, he would do.
From your class?
Yeah.
She only had